Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the all-new F4L Headquarters podcast. I am the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens. I first and foremost want to apologize for, first and foremost, I want to apologize for not being on here as of yet, and tonight marks our return to the F4L headquarters. I'm reopening it here officially now. We got some very exciting changes coming here. We have some very awesome things to come, and I really look forward to bringing all those things to you, including video in face-to-face kind of video podcasts as well for those people who have asked. I will now have the capability, and I'm very happy to do that, and I will now have the capability to have face-to-face video interviews. Obviously we can do that, virtual or whatever, but that gives more people options, so people can not only hear all of you amazing people, but also see you as well. Taking our message of making your goals and dreams happen, and making those dreams come true in the ways we do. Before I want to get started, I want to let people know that, this is something I'm a little nervous about. I am a firm believer if something's not broke, don't fix it. But we're going to try this out. We're going to see how this goes. And I look forward to hearing people's feedback and letting me know how you guys like this. I am very excited for it myself, and we have a pretty good show here tonight, and it's going to be pretty important as we have a lot to cover and go over, and I look forward to bringing that to you guys. And this is going to kind of be done the same way. I don't believe in interruptions and so forth like that, so hopefully this should be a lot of fun. And so everyone, let's get ready for this excitement, and let's start things off. So, as I mentioned on social media, which I do know that people are already liking it, because people have been on this show before, and I want to let people know I'm hoping to bring all of those people back to celebrate really having all of these amazing people back on the show to introduce to the new audience, and also have some new guests on the show to introduce more of the world to those people and get to know more of those people and see what we can do to help elevate them as well. Those people who don't know, my name is the icon, Sean Jazz Stevens. I am the leader, I'm the leader and the host of this show of the F4L. I am known as the person one of the people who formed the F4L lifestyle, which is a completely different way of living, where we believe in love, caring, compassion, understanding, respect for each other's differences. That is how we live our lives, the F4L way. The F4L headquarters is kind of what we always dreamed of having when we first formed the F4L back when I was 16. And next month I'll be 43. Where does time go? So the F4L has kind of been part of my life for many years, and the F4L is something that's celebrated and practiced all over the world with our brothers and sisters in the F4L globally who believe the same things, uniting us all as one. So that is my first thing. I wanted to introduce myself. I am the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens, Jazz for short, and for a little bit of background on me before we get started. One of the things I've done in my past, I'm a New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer. I've been in pro wrestling for a number of years. I've done pretty much any sport that there is. I've competed in it. I was an athlete at a young age. I competed in martial arts since I was 4. I trained in martial arts when I was 4, I should say. I started competing in tournaments when I was about 5. And I did that until I was about 18 when I, really worked towards my first goal and dream, which was to become a professional wrestler, which 6 months before I graduated high school with honors, I started my wrestling career studying at Killer Kowalski's School of Wrestling in Malden, Mass. Same school as Triple H in China and many other wrestling legends. And then, I first went after that goal. I was awarded scholarships due to the fact that I graduated high school with honors. And the reason being is because I also discovered a passion for writing, helping others. And I did a lot of work, journalism as well as sports and things like that. So I was awarded several, scholarships or whatever, which because my first goal was pro wrestling, I went into that first. I was injured in 2003, which was probably the height of my career in 2003. Was the height of my career. I worked for many wrestling companies around. The first job I was ever signed to, the first company I worked for was the old school ECW out of Philadelphia. Of course, that was a Legends contract, so whenever they'd come to my area, I would be expected to be there, and I loved performing. And I went to regulars after I got injured in 2003 in the ring. I needed to fill that void and needed to find something else to do, so I went to regular school, quote. And because I am someone who puts all of my work and goals into achieving, I did both, because I couldn't decide between getting a film degree or a human services degree. I decided to do both. Two separate schools, and in 2007 or 8, I graduated with both. A degree in film from the New England Institute of Art, and also, or film, same school, as well as a degree from the Boston University for Human Services, because I like helping people. I've been an anti-bullying advocate for a number of years. I don't believe in bullying. I've been someone who's been very outspoken about standing up to bullies and standing up for one another and promoting a lifestyle where bullying should never be okay. I do a lot of public speaking regarding those things. And more fun is I am also, of all of the things I've done in my lifetime, and I have done quite a things between writing and the entertainment world. I've made several independent films. I've been writing since I was a young age, so I've written many lyrics to songs. I've written scripts. I've written pretty much everything that there is to write. I've done stage plays. I've done film. I worked with some of the best in the business. I'm very, very friendly with everyone I know, and I'm respectful of everyone I have encountered. And I think that's important to celebrate those things. And the other thing I like to do is encourage others to go after their goals and dreams, no matter what they are, because if it can happen for me, it can happen for anyone. So, let's, that being said, that's a little bit of my background. I am a proud, among all of the, various different awards and accomplishments I have, there is nothing that makes me prouder than being a husband and a father. I have two amazing kids, and I have an amazing wife. They are really the reason I do everything I do, ultimately, is to make a better world for them and for the others like them. My wife is an amazing individual. She's hardworking, dedicated. She is a United States veteran of the military. So she's one tough woman and a former wrestler. So definitely don't want to, mess with her. But she's also has a heart of gold and also one of the better cooks that I know. And someday, who knows, maybe she'll have her own cooking network show. Who knows? Of course, I also have a daughter who's an amazing person as well. She's creative and fun and funny. I have a son who's the same. He's a year younger than her. He'll be 21 in November to make me feel even older. My daughter's going to be 22 in July. Again, I don't know where time goes. But speaking of my son, that's kind of one of the things we're going to lean into tonight. And one of the things that I did a number of years ago as being a father is my son and I kind of developed a show on YouTube while he was sick from school. And I know what you're thinking. Why would you, go on YouTube when, the kid's sick or whatever? Well, here's the thing. I didn't know anything much about YouTube when it first started, but, my real introduction to YouTube was when I went back to pro wrestling in 2009 or 2010, and I became the, quote, YouTube sensation Jazz Fitness. I was a bad guy at that point, or a heel in wrestling terminology. So the idea of the character was to be kind of number one, I'm a bad guy, remember. but he was kind of the unfit fitness guru who would do like these really bad workout videos, and that was really my introduction to learning about what YouTube was, because a lot of those were put up by the company that I worked for, the wrestling organization. And a lot of people really enjoyed that character, even though he was a villain. And people still to this day, between the bad guy that is Jazz Fitness, that is world loved for some reason. Jazz Vengeance was the character I originally was, and for those people who have ever wondered what is the name of Jazz, tomorrow's show, where tomorrow is Thursday, and I'll go back into how I got my name Tomorrow, because that's what tomorrow is for, is recapping, looking back, throwback Thursday, whatever. But today's Wednesday, so today is what I like to call midweek check-in. This is something I've done a lot of the times, and people like to do it. And then also, again, this marks the return of the F4L headquarters, which is even better. So today we're going to do something a little different, and it is a loaded show today, and I'm going to get through all of this today, and it's going to be exciting. So first and foremost, I wanted to talk about, let me just tell you what's on the docket today. We're going to be talking about, I'm going to kind of talk you guys through with the behind the scenes of what goes into making the F4L headquarters podcast, the F4L Icons of the F4L, our YouTube wrestling show. So tonight I'm going to talk you through what goes on, how I come up with the matches, how I develop the things, how do I keep organized everything. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. While doing that, I'm also going to, live that pop culture news live and, talk to you guys about the software I use and also the exciting new software that's coming out, which we use the WWE 2K series to make the shows and make the characters that we build, and the show's built off of that. And I'm going to kind of talk about the game a little bit, the game that's coming out. And I'm also going to talk to you about, kind of the characters the WWE is going to include for the wrestling fans out there and for the game people out there. The official roster, I have that access, and I'm going to share those things with you guys. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the people who we have on our roster who are going to be returning in 2023. Most people have already heard this, and I know that I did a show, prior where I kind of unveiled a bunch of names. I'm going to be doing that again tonight. I'm going to be only going to do that a little bit tonight. Because that is also, as in wrestling and anything else, card subjects change. And also I'm going to do some shout-outs tonight, and there's some people that need some acknowledging, and there's some birthdays that we got to do some shout-outs for, and some other things of that nature. And there's some friends of mine who are out there on various different platforms doing things, and I think they should be acknowledged for those things as well. So, I'm all about getting everyone else over and helping other people achieve their goals and dreams, and helping them kind of get their word out there for those people who maybe not have heard them yet. So let's get into this, I suppose. And also I'm going to be doing film reviews and so forth. Why don't I first, before I do this, go into the film reviews first? Because I feel like once that is out of the way, I feel like everything else can kind of go forward from there. Because I think, honestly, the other parts of the show will kind of bleed into each other, really. Because a lot of the people who I'm shouting out are people who are, part of that roster, or people who I may be thinking of adding to that roster, people who I think I would like to work with, and so forth, and people who I'm going to hopefully welcome here on this podcast. So let's do the film review first. I have two, actually. So those people, as I mentioned, one of the things that I do is, one of the things I've done is make films, but what you might not know is for a long time I worked for a newsletter where I did a lot of the film reviews. I'm going to tell you guys up front right now, I am a blunt and honest individual. I say it how it is. I tell you how I feel. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, and it doesn't mean that it's all in. But what it does mean is that this is kind of how I believe it to be, and this is kind of what I stand by, and there's different things that I look for in certain elements, and this is kind of going to be a lot of fun for that reason, okay? So I have different criteria than everyone else does who does film reviews, because I believe it should be broken into 4 categories. The 4 categories that make a film for me is this part 1, the first thing is story and the believability. Is the story that I'm watching or the movie's premise, is it believable? Is it something I can engage in, even if it's fantasy? Is it done in a way where I can suspend belief and be bought into the characters and whatnot if I know what the film is? Is it easy to follow? Do I believe in it? Whatever. Part 2 is the casting for me. That's the second most important thing for me, is who is portraying these characters. Do I believe that, do I care about the characters being portrayed? Are they being portrayed in a way where I enjoy their work? Are they, are they being honored in that way? Are they, living up to that hype? Do I believe in the hero, for example? Do I care about these characters enough to be invested into this movie? Is it done right? Because sometimes the wrong casting could throw off an entire film. Trust me on that. Or characters sometimes. If you have a character that's so over the top and so unlikable, it can really damage your film based on performance and whatnot. Anyway, the third thing is location and time era. What that means is wherever the project or film is being filmed, does it all match up? Is it easy to see? Is it, if it's a film that is set in the period piece, am I aware of that by how it's presented? Or do I have to guess? Is where it's located, is it something that I can believe that this is a real place? Does it work for the rest of the dynamic of this show? And is it easy for me to understand when this is taking place? Because I think sometimes you have to take away the guessing work sometimes when it comes to making films. Because you want people to enjoy your film, not have to wonder, when is this taking place? The last and final part of any good film, in my opinion, is at the end of the film, does this film kind of create any kind of a feeling for you? How does it make you feel at the end of it? Even while you're watching it, does it make you angry? If it's a horror film, does it scare you? If it's comedy, does it make you laugh? If it's a drama, does it make you cry? Do you feel anything that is appropriate to what the movie kind of matches, right? Does it make you feel something for somewhere? For example, if someone is doing a job, if someone's a villain and you feel like, I hate this villain because of how they're portrayed, obviously the person is doing a good job being a villain, but because that sparked a feeling, that will get kind of a good remark on that. So that's kind of how I judge a film in those 4 categories. And then, of course, I detail those things. So if you guys saw the picture on social media, I'm probably going to update the picture on this profile as well for today's episode. But when it comes to organization, you need to have that in order to be successful in anything. I have forms that I've written. I have what's called a film and television show review form. And basically, it's kind of some of the information is already pre-written. For example, I have a blank space which says title, date, who wrote it, writer or writers, director, cast, plot, summary, based on what they're telling me it's supposed to be about. And then is my review. And at the end of it, I break things into 3 ways. Should you see it? Should you not see it? Or should you take a chance and see how you feel about it? Those are the 3 ways I kind of leave it up to you guys at the end. And then, I sign off and say that I stand by this and this is what I believe. So I have 2 film reviews for you guys. And I'm just going to go through them. And so we can just kind of keep moving. So this is going to be the first film I reviewed. Is one that I was excited for. It's a foreign film from Denmark. It is nominated for numerous awards. It's won numerous awards. It's a film called Close. Was made and released in 2022, but only recently has it become available here in the States. I was lucky enough to watch this film on Friday this past week, and I'm very blessed to have been able to do that. So thank you to them for that. So let me now do this review for you guys. The movie's close. I did see this on the 10th, which was last Friday. It was written by Lucas Daunt, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing anybody's name here, and I apologize if I do. And Angelo Tennyson, I believe his name is. And also Lucas Daunt, I believe it's pronounced, is also the director as well as the writer, which is also good. It is an independent film, and it is a foreign film. Again, it is done by A24 Studios, which is probably one of the leading contenders for studios right now. They're probably tied to many successful projects as of right now. So they're doing good things. Now, that being said, cast includes Eden Dumbrain, who plays Leo, Gaston Whalen, who plays Remy, Emily Daquan, who plays Sophie, Leah Drecker, who plays Natalie, and Kevin Jennison, I believe it is, who plays Peter. And this is the summary. The intense friendship between two 13-year-olds, Leo and Remy, suddenly gets disrupted when a tragedy ensues, tearing the two apart, and how to overcome grief and whatnot. That's what they're saying the movie is about. So now I'm going to give you my review. And we go right down the line. So first and foremost, the story and the believability factor. For those people who don't know, I mean, considering the name of the show is the F4L headquarters, when it comes to friendships, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to that kind of a tight bond, there is probably no one that understands that more than me. This film, being F4L, actually, I can understand a lot of this and can relate to a lot of this as being someone who had that kind of a bond with his real friends, the original F4L. A lot of people outside of our bubble would view us kind of like this. We were close as brothers, our friendships. We're brothers. When we needed something, we were there. When we were hurting, we were there. We were there for each other. We hung out together. We laughed together. We cried together. We were angry together. Good times, bad times, we were always there for each other. And that's kind of what this friendship is between Leo and Remy. That's the two young men who are 13. And basically, it's how they interact and how close they are as friends. Their families, both parties, absolutely embrace that. They get that. They understand it. They're not threatened by it. That's awesome to see. Because sometimes that can, raise a lot of eyebrows, and sometimes when it's not such a thing. But they get it. They know what the friendship is. They know it's a complete cool thing, But here's where the other thing comes into play, which I can also relate to. It's when they go to school, other kids, the other peers, they're going to be the ones to kind of stir the pot, so to speak. And, because they're two 13-year-old males, there's a lot of how 13-year-olds should act around other 13-year-old males, how friends are around one another. The friendship here shown is actually two platonic friends. They are real life. They are perceived to be real life, long time best friends. Seen a long time. They have a very close relationship. They have a lot of sleepovers and stuff like that. I don't believe there's anything romantically involved here at all, as a lot of people probably want to think that is the case. I think it's simply you have that bond with your real friends. And sometimes when you have that bond, this is all normal things. Especially when you're 13, you're a teenager. That's the kind of things you do. You hang out together, you work together, you play together. It's how it works. And there's no indication that anything like that was involved. But what does happen is the other people outside of that bubble, the other kids, will start to question, and that's what usually starts the plot anyway. How others see, that group, those two friends, and so for that, it's believable. We got to stick to kind of the premise and the story and the believability factor. I don't want to give a lot of spoilers because I think you should see this movie, and that's ultimately the final decision on that. If you were able to deal with subtitles, I should specify that as well. That's something you should know going in. It was filmed in Denmark, and it is in subtitles. I don't think you'll have an issue. 90% of the things we watch today, and a lot of the things that people enjoy, are usually imports or whatnot. Young kids sometimes do a lot of reading on, the animes and things like that. I don't know per se if I would recommend this for young kids. I definitely think teenagers would probably understand this if you have that kind of a relationship with friends and stuff like that. I think it's also something that is more of a social lesson than something should be kind of brought to people's attention. Because this happens more than people think. So anyway, I don't want to give, like I said, spoilers. So that being the story, what happens is, other people outside kind of pry and kind of poke the bear, so to speak, and imply things that aren't there, which makes one of the 13-year-olds uncomfortable and starts to get them to think, well, do we give off this vibe? Because that's not what I'm trying to do. That's not what the other kid's trying to do either. They're just friends. And what happens is because the other friend wants to push that away, because he wants to kind of appeal to the other audience, he's kind of ashamed of how close they are. Again, that part I have issue with, because if they're your friends, you stand by your friends. Never mind the rest of the world. If you know what the friendship is, you don't have to explain what your friendship is to everyone else. It's no one else's business. And again, when it comes to bullying and trying to live up to peer pressure, I'm someone who does not believe in peer pressure, bending into peer pressure, or giving it, or any of that stuff. Live your own life your own way. Basically, the tragedy they speak of is because of that one, that friend choosing to isolate his other friend after all this time, that kind of puts a damper on the relationship. It ends up in a very tragic way, and then the character of Leo has to kind of figure out how to live with that, and he has to live with kind of the feelings that you would have at that age with those things. And boy, does this speak to me at 13 years old. We'll go into that. So now let's get into the casting, right? That's part two. So, first and foremost, the two young men playing Leo and Remy did fantastic. Absolutely, I buy that they are longtime best friends. And I think that they did a great job with casting as far as that goes. I think they kind of nailed the whole dynamic very well. I think they handled their roles extremely well. I think when it came to being on screen and being able to show those vulnerable moments, they did a great job with that. They did a great job with presentation as far as, can you see their feeling? Can you see can you feel what they are? And that's kind of what you can see a lot, because sometimes what they're seeing, what they're feeling, you can't actually see on the screen. Sometimes there's no words for that. But what this does is it kind of gives you that impression. You can tell that by their body language, by their face. And being someone who was in this situation where I lost, a lot of people in my lifetime. At 13, one of my closest friends I lost due to violence. And unfortunately, he literally died in my arms at 13. And I was also 13. And like this character, I had to continue going on my life without that friend that I had. Fortunately for me, or unfortunately for me, there are other people who I grew up with around him that we continue to live in his memory. And I believe that when you have that relationship with your friends, they live in your heart and your mind and your soul. So as long as you keep them close to your heart and you remember them and you honor them and you remember who they were, they're not truly gone. On our YouTube show, we have a saying that goes, "Heroes are remembered, but legends never die." In all honesty, my real F4L, the people who really, I mean, that was prior to the F4L being formed, was my friend who I lost at that age. And unfortunately, I think that what's important to know is that those things can happen at any age. Nothing's guaranteed. Tragedy can strike anywhere. And I think this movie did a great job. The casting did a good job with that as well, because everyone in their roles individually did a great job with the dynamics. I do have to say, everyone across the board, everyone from the minor characters did a great job with what they had to do. A lot of the times, a lot of these movies will focus on two main people and then a couple other people. And one of the other things is whenever you're dealing with a movie of this nature, 8 out of 10 times what ends up happening is outside of those two friends, those main characters, everyone looks at them, strange. What's awesome is that the parents are supportive of this relationship. There's no judgment there at all, and that goes on both ends of that. Leo's character, who is the other friend, is the friend who kind of pushed the other one away, kind of a thing. The one who is kind of telling the story. He is his brother, who is his older brother, does a great job stepping in and noting that his little brother is in trouble. He knows his little brother is hurting because he lost his good friend. What a great job this is. This is not one of those coming of age movies where the older brother is this dominant jerk who is unsympathetic and whatever. He is a sympathetic older brother. He gets it. And as an older brother, I get that. That's a great job performance on that end. The performance of both sets of parents, having to deal with a lot of this, did a great job as far as that goes. So really, as far as casting goes, spot on, and everyone did a great job in that in their old individual roles and making them their own. Location and era. I obviously know it was filmed in Denmark, and I know it was filmed over there. I know it was obviously made in Denmark, obviously, and it's very bright at times, extremely bright. Most of this film, I gotta say, it doesn't shy away from colors. There's some type. I'm not really understanding what during the process of the movie. I don't think this is spoiling anything, but they live on what looks to be like a nectar farm or a flower farm kind of a thing, where they pluck flowers and sell flowers, or I think they deal with honey or whatever. But anyway, I don't really understand what the flower piece is, what they're actually doing for work, but they're basically plucking a lot of flowers as like in like a, kind of like an assembly kind of a way. But it's very bright most of this time, open fields, bright colors, bright clouds, the color, which is also good because it goes with the storyline, because, the cliche is, when tragedy strikes, it's got to rain, right? Well, in this movie, it's bright and it's light, and it's, the sun's out, the sun's down, and there's none of that in this film, which is awesome. It's realistic in that aspect. It doesn't insult the audience by telling it, well, no, we want to make sure this is sad, so we're going to make it rain as well. They don't do that in this film. They do a good job with keeping it real. The colors are clean. It's a very vibrant movie. Everyone's very colorful and dressed. The clothing of the characters don't shy away from the colors. I think modern day movies, most kids are wearing a lot of black and dark colors. This movie, they're very bright, and everything's very light. There are even at night when things are supposed to be a darker kind of representation, it's still light enough that you can see everything that's going on. A lot of the times in these foreign films, whenever there's a dark scene or a nighttime scene, just the lighting is so dark sometimes you got to barely make out the people. They did a great job of lighting and the colors of this film. Spot on. As far as the time and era, I don't think that was ever addressed in the film, but in the same sense also, I don't think it's really relevant, because in all honesty, that message, the ultimate message of the film about having a friendship and having that that tight-knit friendship and having it end and how to move on, that is a never-ending thing that you encounter all of the time. That's not just a thing that happened in the past. That's a thing that goes around all year, every day, all over the world. So I think in this case, the time era doesn't really matter because it's something that speaks to any audience. So that's kind of cool. So at the end of the day, how did this movie make us feel? How did it make me feel? Well, being someone, again, who has been in the situation of Leo. No, I never pushed anyone away, but I also have been someone who has ended relationships that were toxic. That's not easy either, to admit that you were wrong about a friendship you thought was a real friendship. But when you come to realization that you need to end the relationship for the better good of yourself in the time being, that's a painful thing to go through. But also, when you're in the situation like Leo and I, where I lost a young friend at that age, how do I deal with that? Well, the way I dealt with it is, when I was in the situation at 13, I didn't know how to help him. I was ill-equipped as much as I thought I could. All I knew was call 911. But what happens when you call 911 and they put you on hold, which is what happened? It was a tragic accident that it wasn't an accident. There was a party and someone, used a weapon on my friend in front of me, and he took the thing. Everyone ran out of the house. My one friend called 911. It was on Halloween night, 1993. This took place. So 1993. It was on a Halloween night, and when while I was trying to help my friend who got hurt, my other friend called 911. Because they put him on hold, by the time the officers got there and the help got there, he was already gone. But I wanted to make sure that if I was ever in that situation again, that would never happen, because I wanted to be that person to be able to help person if I'm in that situation. So what I took from that experience in real life was I learned how I went and got certified in first aid and CPR, which, by the way, last week I actually recertified again with my certification in first aid and CPR because it was due. So I'm very happy that I've been doing that. I've been doing that since I was 15 years old, being certified by the American Red Cross in first aid and CPR. So I made kind of good out of a tragedy. That's how that works. And it inspired me to make sure if I was ever in the situation, I'd be able to help someone. And yeah, I've actually had to use some of those things in the past since that, and I'm very happy that I had that ability to do so. So at the end of it, how does it make me feel? Yes, I can relate to everything. I find a sense of appreciation because I know what that's like to have that kind of a friendship, and I know what it's like to have lost people you're close to. I also know what it's like to question, like, why does this happen? And also, the other thing is that haunting thing is, I wish I had said this, I wish I had done that, I wish, one of the things I've always said about, when it comes to friendships and being responsible of words and stuff is, you never want to have open-ended responses to anything. You never want to, have people wonder and guess, hey, how is everything? How is, what's happening with whatever? You don't want people to guess, did they know that I loved them? Did they know that I cared about them? That's one of the reasons why not a day goes by I don't tell my wife or my kids I love them. Beginning of the day and end of the day, I tell them all I love them, and that's something that needs to be done. Because I don't want there to be any question with people how I feel about them. The same goes for my F4L. I tell my F4L friends, who are my brothers and my sisters, that I love them. And again, much like these characters, it's not because there's something romantically involved there. It's a brother bond. It's a family bond. I would be there when anybody needed me. I am there. I'm dedicated. If they ever needed something day or night, I'm there for my brothers and my sisters. That's what that friendship is. And that's kind of what you want in a real-life friendship. Because that's kind of, what a real friend is someone who is there for you no matter what. And that's ultimately what this film kind of emulates. And then how do you pick up the pieces after that's gone? So yeah, it's a tragic movie, sad movie, but great, wonderfully done. So at the end of the day, should you see it? Absolutely. But also, I think what should be also said is two things. One, if you are someone who is sensitive to self-harm, I think you might want to be careful going to see this film. Also, if you are someone who, by giving you that, I'm not trying to go into, I'm not doing spoilers, but I do want to make sure you are aware of that if you are someone who is sensitive to those topics, because that is something that is addressed. The other part of that is if you are someone who has a hard time reading subtitles, you also might want to figure out a way to do that as well. So as long as you can get those things covered and the other things, I think absolutely you should see this film, especially if you are someone that has had a friendship like this or can relate to this. I think this is a great message, and ultimately, granted, I know it's two 13-year-olds, but ultimately this is something that goes along every day. Everyone has these kinds of friendships, and sometimes you can have friendships this close all the way up to adulthood, and it doesn't matter what, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what everyone else looks at you guys or how everyone else views you guys or people, whoever it is. At the end of the day, what matters is your friendship, what you mean to each other, because you're not there to please everyone else in the world. You're there to be your friends and, do all that. That's what a friend is, right? Okay, cool. Now, that being said, that was the review on Close from 2022, and it is now done, and it's up for all kinds of awards, and it deserves all of them. There you go. And this one, the next film is going to be a little quicker one, because it's a little bit faster. And this is going to be one that's probably going to... Again, I tell it how it is, and I tell you it's my opinion. It doesn't mean it's law. It's just my opinion of it. And I want to make sure people understand that, this comes from someone who's familiar with the stories and whatnot. So the next one I'm going to I'm going to be talking about is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Would have been called Black Panther 2, but it's called Wakanda Forever. Of course, it's written by the same people, Ryan Coogler, and the whole team that brought you guys everything else. So Ryan Coogler, that's right, Ryan Coogler, and all the original people, and of course the original person who came up with it, of course, Stan Lee and Robert Cole, the original authors from Marvel, because let's not forget, this is a Marvel-based movie, so this is the next adaptation to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But let me wait to that. So the casting of this, by the way, is written by Ryan Coogler as well as Stan Lee is getting credit for that, as well as he is the original from Marvel, late great Stan the Man Lee. So casting is... I am so sorry about these names. Letiana Wright, who plays Shuri. La Petita. I'm going to just... Okay, let me just do this. I'm so sorry to do this. I don't want to butcher people's names. Dana Guerrero is in it. She plays Oki. She's one of the guards. And all of the characters you already know from the Black Panther series, from... Shuri, the sister of T'Challa, who was played by originally Chadwick Boseman. That I know. Okay, also Nakia comes back for this film, as well as M'Baku, who is the kind of the leader of that roughneck tribe in Wakanda. Angela Bassett is also, comes back for this film as she plays Ramonda. There's another gentleman who plays Nomar. I don't want to butcher these names, so I'm not going to try. And Martin Freeman plays the Everett Post, who is the FBI agent from the first Black Panther film. It also ties this to the rest of the cinematic universe. Anywho, so the plot's very simple here, folks, and the plot of this film is the people of Wakanda mourn the loss of their protector and their king, and they have to get ready to defend their world against an outside force and an unfulfilling attack as they mourn the loss of King T'Challa. and how they all basically think. So now, I'm not going to have to read this off the form. Obviously, I'm going to go verbatim, but we're going to go by part again. So first and foremost, the story and believability. All right, now I have to let you guys know that, again, this show is about pop culture, and one of the reasons why it can be about that is because of the fact that I kind of dabble in everything. Film, television, movies, sports, you name it, I am kind of into a lot of that. As a young kid growing up, I was heavy into comic books, and I read pretty much everything. I also have family who is heavy into comic books. So here's the thing about the story about this whole thing. My issue is I feel like this film felt rushed, and also I think what happened is they began filming it the way they wanted it and intended it to be. But unfortunately, people didn't know that Chadwick Boseman was sick, and unfortunately he had passed. And now when you've had a film that was already, pre-made, what do you do with everything after that if you don't have enough? And the other part is, COVID came into play also during the whole making of this film, so I'm sure that, paid into impacting this project as well. That also impacted its pushback and everything else. So here's my thing about it. I feel like it was really rushed in some parts of it. And also, you don't have Stan Lee to kind of dictate the story because he's not around either. But I have to say, so one of the issues with a lot of comic book people who are what they call comic book purists, those are the ones who kind of read the comics, who know the comics. And one of the issues that comic book purists have with when they make cinematic movies about the books that they make them on, is when they change and they alter certain things. This never took place in the Black Panther series, T'Challa dying or anything like this. This is a completely different story altogether. So this is something that the writer and the director did on their own. And Stan Lee was not there to also oversee this because here's the issue. First and foremost, Namor, who is the villain, is supposed to be the villain in this film, by the way, Namor. I'm just going to let you guys know. I'm not going to give you spoilers as how the movie goes, but what I am going to do is correct the wrongs. Namor was never a villain in the cinematic universe. It was never a villain in the Marvel universe prior to the film. Namor was actually one of the original Avengers, right side Captain America, Nick Fury, Hawkeye, the Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, and again, Namor was there as well. I'm going to tell you why that was the case. If you guys know that there's an unwritten kind of a jab between Marvel and DC, obviously the Avengers and the Justice League America of DC are complete opposites, but they're the same in some elements, right? When on one side you have Captain America, who is Captain America is seen as like the Superman of the Avengers. Batman is the Iron Man of the Avengers. Flash would be, you take your pick, the Hawkeye or whatever the case may be. In fact, not only does the Avengers have a guy named Hawkeye for shooting arrows, the Justice League, not only do they have a guy who shoots arrows called the Green Arrow, but they also, in addition to that, have Hawkman and Hawkgirl, taking up a notch. So Namor is basically, came to be as part of the Avengers because he is the answer to Aquaman of the Justice League. Make sense? Aquaman is the god of the sea, so to speak, in DC. Well, that's what Namor is, ultimately. So, and there's never been a conflict between Namor and the Wakanda, ever, or the Black Panther in general. So that's something that comic book purists would have an issue with, which is probably why, although the costumes are going to get really good praise, I'm sure Chadwick Boseman is going to be honored for his contributions, and he was a talented actor or whatever. He did bring that, Black Panther to life in the first film, but his lack of presence in this film is kind of lazy in some aspects. But I'm going to save that for the end, for the ultimate feeling at the end. So let's go into... So the story and the believability is, because I know that this is something completely made for the film, and because I know that they probably had to rush this because of the fact that, Chadwick Boseman, T'Challa, died in the making of making this film. And as a filmmaker, I understand things happen, but sometimes you have to make the judgment to just scrap it all together rather than rush something. Because what will happen is it'll impact the product in the end, which is, I think, could happen here, for me anyway. As far as casting goes, the same, they brought back the same characters we already know. We know Shuri, who is, T'Challa's sister. We know, Danny Guerrero, who plays Oki, who's one of the lead, guards of the king, of T'Challa. And, of course, you might know her better as Michonne from The Walking Dead. She is an absolute force to be reckoned with on any of these elements. She is, in my opinion, I think she's probably one of the top leading action actresses out there. It might be one of the most underrated actresses in general, as far as that goes. But anyway, also Nakia, who played his love interest in the first film, who was in this out of nowhere. Angela Bassett, who plays his mother, Ramonda. And of course, the guy who plays Namor. Again, because the whole Namor thing is completely out to left field, I'm not saying that his backstory might not be semi-accurate, but as far as him ever having bad feelings towards Wakanda or anything like that, it has never been a thing. Again, I do want people to think of Aquaman and the Justice League, because that's ultimately where he was in the Avengers. Ultimately, if you want to be honest and truthful about it, when it came to the very first Avengers movie, where you had that iconic spot where you had Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, Black Widow, and all that in that circle, technically speaking, Namor should have been right in that group as well as Nick Fury, as they were the original Avengers. So that's something to be aware of. Not that it's huge. Then again, the Avengers, much like the Justice League, there's always subpartals and more parts, and then two parts of everything. So we get how that works. So that's kind of that part. So casting wise, I mean, they brought everyone back except for T'Challa. Obviously, they couldn't because he's no longer around. Hey, listen, everyone did the best they could with what they had, but if you can't get into the story because it's so... I feel like this movie really... I don't want to say it's like a 2 or 3 hour kind of a morning session. It's really a way to really drive at the heart. I feel like it kind of tries really hard to get you to feel... really bad for the characters, and you really want to have those crying moments. Now, my wife, who is someone who's sensitive, she did cry a few parts. She was someone who Chadwick Boseman meant a lot to her, being the first person of color to be featured in the Avengers and the Marvel Universe or whatever and whatnot. And he was a good guy in general, and so she had issues. She did cry for that. And I think because of that, she was kind of partial for the whole rest of the movie. She gave the whole rest of the movie that pass as well because of that. I am not someone who goes by a lot of that. I've not cried at a film in a long time. Doesn't mean I don't get feelings for it. I do. The movie I just reviewed prior to that probably would have made me feel like I wanted to cry, but I did not. This film just seemed like it was really trying to get you to feel really sad. And I don't know if all of the performances by everyone here emulated the rest of what they're trying to perceive. For example, Suri, who is T'Challa's sister, we're supposed to like her in this film. And when it comes to casting, that's what we're talking about, is the casting, the characters, the believability factor. If you can't get behind the cast or the person you are casting, it will throw off your movie. And I think that's kind of what happened for me in this. Because I was coming into this movie and I'm watching this, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. I can't get behind Suri's character here. Again, it's something completely different from what they've done ever before. As again, it's probably not what was the original in the docket, but her sense of rage comes from nowhere. Her sense of disrespect to her mother is out of nowhere. Her sense of lack of empathy for losing her mother and wanting to get angry all of a sudden. Sorry, I'm trying not to do spoilers, but the way that Shuri behaves in this film is not of a hero. It's an anti-hero. It's actually more so an anti-hero than any other. It's actually the makings of a villain, really, if you really want to look at it like that. And I really can't buy her. And listen, I want to make sure I'm clear about this. I'm not saying that a woman can't be the new Black Panther. That's not my issue. My issue is I don't buy Shuri being this Black Panther hero that the world needs. I don't buy her as the Black Panther because her portrayal prior to this, the character, her demeanor, is not that of what Black Panther should be. And that is my issue with the casting and the film in general. There's a lot of people who are casted opposite of where they should be. They brought people back who are familiar because the fans are familiar with those characters. There's a lot of these characters who just kind of throw them here just because we need to throw them here. The agent that they had to bring back, Freeman there, what point was he to be there? He did nothing to add to this film. There was some chatter back and forth. That whole thing had nothing to do with what was going on outside. There was no payoff to any of those issues portrayed by the agent or the people around him. There were things built up, and there was some concern. Oh, what's this going to be? And nothing was ever gone back to. That's an issue, and loopholes and unanswered questions, and no. So as far as location and era, this is obviously set in the modern time after the snap in Marvel Universe. So the snap has already happened at this point. People have already come back from the snap in the Marvel Universe. And again, you can't take, just because it's in a fake universe, you can't subtract the rest of it. And you have to understand that if you know going into a movie it's all, a fictitious era, then you have to take that into account as well. Wakanda itself, I know people are going to be upset about this, but okay, so Wakanda isn't first and foremost a fake area. There's no such place as Wakanda. It's set in Africa, and it's sort of a place that doesn't make a lot of sense in a lot of areas. There's some loopholes to how they do their dynamic. They have, for example, a shield that you need to be able to give the Wakandan government heads up that you're coming in to get permission to land in Wakanda or to come to Wakanda. But yet, the ocean is not something that is, or the water is not something that is protected, I guess. And Wakanda is seen as kind of like an island, kind of an idea. That I have issues with. I thought that maybe they spent too much time focusing on showing this beautiful landscape, and maybe they should have spent more time working on the dynamic of the characters and maybe staying true to what the original, getting close to the idea of the original story. Because I think that it's okay to show, hey, look at this pretty picture, but if you show the little pretty picture on the right hand, but because there's all this mess on the other side of things, it's not really fixing it. It's just kind of blocking it out and trying to distract you. All right. So at the end of that, location, Wakanda we know isn't real. It looks very pretty, but there's just some issues with, well, why do you need a permission to land by the ocean, by the land, but you can just take a boat into the area? And why can people swim into the water but have to take a boat above the water? That doesn't make sense either. If that's the case, why don't people just jump off of a boat just before you get to the Wakanda, swim under the water, and then just do that? So there's some loopholes to that. And lastly is the feeling by the end of the movie. And this is, by the way, the end of this review. The feeling at the end of the movie is that, again, it felt rushed. It felt like just a 2 or 3 hour tribute to Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa. The issue is, and I know, and the problem is also is that they have the technology to do it, but they did not do it here. They do have the technology to have a CGI T'Challa. And I remember watching the film. When I was watching the film, I was waiting for that to happen. Yes, they had pictures of him everywhere. They had a poster, and they had things like that. But for those people who saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, which a lot of people, a lot of critics and everything else kind of panned and didn't like, you got to give respect to those filmmakers because they at least gave people what they wanted. They wanted to see Egon. And Egon, played by Harold Ramis, who at this point had been gone well before the female Ghostbusters came out, they were able to somehow get him in there anyway. And we're talking about a film company like Disney and whatever who made this film with all the money that they used, and no one thought of having a CGI, at least a CGI thing with T'Challa. They had a scene with another person who's no longer in their universe because he's still alive. But you're telling me they couldn't have taken any of the scenes with T'Challa when he was alive, Chadwick Boseman, and you couldn't have had that implemented in there? So I felt myself feeling at the end of it that people got cheated out of that. I thought it was kind of lazy by the filmmakers, rushed, and ultimately, I think for me, it kind of costs the whole movie, and it kind of wrecked the movie for a lot of people. And I don't know if people know this, but it didn't do as well as the first one. Yeah, people went to see it, but it was not in the droves that the people first went to see the original one. So clearly there's something behind what I saw, and other people obviously agree. So there's something there to be said as well. All right, so that's my film review. Those are my only 2 film reviews. So now, I'm going to briefly, honestly, when it comes to telling you guys the backstories of, not the backstory, but the behind the scenes of how I come up with icons of the F4L. That's the show on YouTube. Again, I'm not going to go into how I started it again because I've already done that multiple times, and maybe tomorrow I'll do that again for you guys who are new, who maybe not know how that happened. But in general, in retrospect. So first and foremost, I'm going to tell you the process to what I go through to put together the show. First and foremost, I need to find the people to feature on on the icons of the F4L. I reach out to these people, message to them and let them know, listen, I really respect you. I like what you do. I would like to build, and as odd as this sounds, I literally do say this, and anyone who's listening who I've done this with, and I've actually done this on the air, I've asked people, so there's proof behind this too. I'll say, listen, I do this YouTube wrestling show. I did start it with my son, as I said before, in my long intro. But what I have been doing since 2020 is, using or building real life Dream Masters, which are male superstars, and Dream Warriors, which is what we call our females. And what we do is we feature real life people who are doing incredible things in real life. And we put them on our show so they can get some, wordplay and people can learn more things about them while I'm calling the matches with them in it. Okay? So that's the first part. So first part is finding the people who I'm going to feature. So let's take let's take Walker Campbell, for example. I'm going to go, use him for an example, since he was someone who I asked on the air, hey, how would you like to be on Icons of the F4L? I'd like to, ask you to be part of this show. And I think at first he was joking. Philip Ricardo Jr. is another one of these people, actually, who I asked on the air. So let's either one of them. So that's a tag team guy and another. So Walker Campbell, who is a very talented musician, young man musician, and well, actually he's more than a musician. Walker Campbell is kind of an all-around. All honesty, he is the total package when it comes to entertainment goes. He can act, he can sing, he can dance, he can play sports, he can just be himself. He's naturally funny. So when it comes to Walker Campbell, there's a lot of things that go into that. So first and foremost, taking Walker Campbell, for example, and by the way, Walker, if you're listening, sorry for throwing you under the bus, but you're just an example here. So I reach out to Walker Campbell. I say, I'd like to build you. He says, yes, cool. Now what I have to do is go to the wrestling game and utilize something called the Create a Wrestler features in the Created Suite. So the wrestling game has features called, Build a Wrestler. So they have a feature where you can actually build your own wrestler. And the idea is you build your own character and you kind of wrestle with them. But what my son and I found out is you can actually build whoever or whatever, and then you can actually do it and set it up so the match played by the machine picks the winners. That's ultimately why it's called originally Dream Matches, because we don't pick the winners. We still don't, by the way. But anyway, let's go through the process real quick. So reaching out to Walker Campbell, he says yes. I build him. So now after I've built Walker Campbell, and I build him the way I think he would look good. So I put him, put the hair, get the hair right, the face right, the clothing right. I always do I do 4 sets of clothes. So clothing in the 2 sets of clothes in the ring. So people know. So there's 4 outfits total, but you can only have an outfit to the ring, an outfit in the ring, and the same thing goes for the opposite. So the other is the same. So you can't mix and match. So I know it sounds confusing. Probably make it longer than it has to be. But anyway, so I build all these images, and then what will happen is I'll send Walker Campbell the images and his. Send Walker Campbell the pictures on social media. This is what it looks like. How do you like it? He says it looks great. It looks wonderful. I can't wait. But here's the thing. When it comes to building someone, it's not just building them. I have to build them. And they're not done after I've done building the physical traits. Now, after I build them, I got to give them a move set. And then I have to give them an entrance. Once all that is done, they are considered to be done. When I do this and I feature someone, I always make sure I ask them first, or 2, make them aware that I want to do this, so if they want to see it, they can, and then 3, just because it's fun, and I like to let them know that it's going to happen, so they're not surprised. And I also like to stress to people that remember, I have no control over the outcomes, because I don't. Whoever wins, wins. We don't have no control over that. So after I do all that, Walker Campbell sees his images or whatever, and I do. Most people know that I have usually the same schedule for our show. The 4th, the 14th, and the 24th of every month on YouTube, you can look forward to seeing an episode of Icons of the F4L. Usually there'll be a theme or whatever, and sometimes there may be a pop-up show here and there, so it's good to be on your toes. But for the most part, there's always a show on the 4th, 14th, and 24th of every month. Remember, anything with 4s of every month. And, that's kind of the first thing, is knowing when to where to look. So now what happens is I get a hold of Walker Campbell prior to that, and the 4th is coming up, and I tell him you're going to debut on the 4th. So now I have to find one of the other people to put him against. That's usually done by random, so I have everyone's name written on a paper, and I will draw it out of what I call the jar of fate, or the bag of fate, or whatever, which is basically a bunch of names in a bag, or 4 names, because, you're going to have a one-on-one match. It doesn't make sense to have 50 names if there's going to be, a thing. Also, you have to figure out, are they going to be a good guy, or are they going to be a kind of an antagonist kind of a thing? And I have people who are on both. Walker Campbell is a face or a good guy, so he is, going to be there. So I also kind of try to keep people on certain times a week and kind of keep people in their own kind of elements, so to speak. So, for example, Walker Campbell, where he's more of an entertainment kind of a guy, he's more of a person who would feature in more of the Dream Masters Universal Championship realm of things. Versus, even though he is an athlete and stuff like that, for the most part, if you would ask Walker, he is a kind of an all-around thing. He could probably fit in both titles, really. But the way I look at things is either there's two elements. You're either in the beginning part of the week, which is more the entertainment venue, or the more hardcore MMA, martial arts sports kind of people who are more towards the end of the week. Or the BA championship, so to speak, or the BA MMA title as we call it now. So basically I find a match, I put him in, and that's kind of how it worked. Now Walker, when he debuted in what was called, because I happened to have the match anyway, he debuted in a 6-way cage match. So there was a cage that every time there was 6 people involved, and 2 people would be in the ring. Every so often a cage door would open, someone would interfere. We call it a 666 cage of doom, which is what we call it on our show. WWE calls it an elimination chamber. So what'll happen is, Walker would be part of that group. So Walker comes out and, again, plays that thing. And then after that, he does his match or whatever, and that goes for any of these people I feature. After that, I call the action as they come into the ring, and I call the action, and I tell everyone about all the people in the ring while calling action like you'd hear on wrestling commentary. And after that, I will follow up with the person, and if they haven't seen their match, which hopefully they would, but if they hadn't seen it, I'll send them a link to their match. And that's ultimately kind of the process. So I have a form that I am working on in between shows called the match card. I have a blank match card, and I also have what's called a blank roster sheet. Again, I'm going to repost the pictures on here, but on social media you can see them on my Instagram. I have them all in folders. I have one such of things are the roster sheets. So I know everyone who's on the roster. I have to look at that. The other thing I look at is who hasn't been in the match yet. I usually try to keep my matches no more than 8 per show. Bigger shows, I'll do maybe 2 extra matches, or a total of 10. Prior to what we're going to be doing in 2003, I would cut it in half because we have both men and women on the roster. I would split those things in half. But starting this year in 2023, 2023, I'm very excited that we're going to be giving the women their own space and their own show to kind of elevate themselves and stand out, because women could be just as tough as the men, and we're going to prove that or show that because they're going to have their own show to kind of elevate that. So I'm very excited for that. So ultimately, that's kind of how that goes. Sometimes I have to be honest. Sometimes I look at certain people who are going to face, who hasn't wrestled in a while, who hasn't been in a match. What would make an entertaining storyline? Because wrestling is about telling stories too. So that goes with that. Now, let's say someone wins the championship. Because, and again, these are things that my son and I kind of, put into place a long time ago when we started Dream Masters. First and foremost, we never liked the fact that there should never be a question who is the better person. You need to know who the winner is, which is why one of the rules of a title match is, the 3 ways to win a championship: pinfall, submissions, or knockouts. And that goes for anywhere in the building. So a champion cannot get counted out. A champion cannot be disqualified intentionally, because that drives us nuts. There should be a clear winner. There should not be a time limit draw. And in the event that there is, usually the way we do it on the show is we'll hit restart, and then we'll call that a sudden death because it's a game. and then it'll play it again. Again, it's set to demo. So we don't actually play the game. We never play the game. We don't alter the outcomes. Whatever happens, happens. I just call the action. And that is when you'll see it. So after I put the matches together, they go up on YouTube. And that's ultimately the way it goes. In other times, when I've had co-hosts, a lot of the times I'll record the matches prior with no audio. And then me and my co-host, for example, I had a co-host, Jojo Sebastian, who I did it on Tuesdays with, also known as Jojo and Jazz's Wrestling Extravaganza on Tuesday nights, which was awesome. And also I worked with Jackson Robert Scott, or on our show we call Jackson R. Scott, the prodigy himself, who has been on our show for a long time. So that being said, those are two individuals who, when it came to them, I would record the matches prior using the PlayStation, transfer it to a disc, and then using a third party, we'll watch it together and call the action, a little Zoom type of thing. That's kind of how that works. That's kind of how we did the magic there. A lot of work goes into that, and I'm hoping to do something a little different this year with that as well. I'm hoping to bring in a co-host with me this year, or maybe do something a little different. We're going to have like a featured superstar type of thing, which will be something new. Possibly using this or using YouTube. We'll figure that out later. Because there's a lot of amazing stars on our show. Because ultimately, that's kind of how the show goes. If someone wins a title, they win a title, we congratulate them or whatever. But also what happens is the first person to get a chance at the title is the former champion. But one chance. What happens in pro wrestling a lot of the times is storylines or challengers kind of get scarce because it's the same people over and over again in these matches. And it gets stale, it gets outdated. And ultimately, we have a roster of 100 people of our roster. And there are people who are amazing athletes, and everyone deserves an opportunity at least once. And we believe in that. That's something me and my son thought of years ago, that everyone should get an opportunity at least once. So we rotate everything. So two people will have the match, or if it's a tag team match, same way. And then the former champions will get their opportunity. And then, after they lose twice, whatever, that's it. They got to start back up again. Which is why I think it shows the integrity of our superstars, both in real life and on our show, because in real life, our superstars are absolute beasts when it comes to picking themselves up from a loss. In real life. And we're going to get into a few of them. And I'm going to talk to you about a few matches, particularly just happened recently. So on our show, we have a tag team division, obviously. One of our leading tag teams, which were the four of the toughest young men alive in real life and on our show. The Adele Boys, which on that side was Mason the Hammer Odell and his brother Ty the Devil Odell. So Mason the Hammer Odell and Ty the Devil Odell, all representing the Odell Boys, and there are four of them together in their little faction, which they're real life brothers. They were challenging the tag team champions in an Iron Team match. The champions, Henry El Nero Mena, and his brother Hyro, the Pitbull Mena, the Mena Boys. The Mena Boys you probably recognize. All four young men are all over social media and on these youth MMA divisions of the world and the youth MMA sports world. These four young men are four of the toughest competitors alive and some of the best pure athletes you'll ever see in real life. And I believe it transcends on our show. They are absolute beasts on the show. Really what we did in 2023 is we eliminated the preliminary titles because more titles takes away the specialness of the championship. So in 2023, we only have two sets of tag titles, one for the beginning of the week and one for the two divisions, really. And then the other is the other half, which is the BA MMA kind of a division. Superstars that might be in that division, you'll see the current champion. The singles Dream Masters BA champion right now, again, if those people didn't see it, we had a show on the 13th because the 14th was a little special presentation. On the 13th, we had a match where where we had the rematch between Noah the Nightmare Tyndall, who defended against Grayson the Super Duck Russell. These are two of the toughest young men on the planet in real life. On our show, two of the toughest young men you'll ever encounter on our show. Noah was on our show a few years ago, and then whatever happened, things change or whatever, and our roster, we're always evolving. And after reaching out and really getting to know the family and stuff like that, and Noah's been on the podcast, I've talked with Noah several times. Same thing goes for Grayson. I think Grayson was also someone who, when he was on my podcast, I asked him and his mother how they'd feel about being on the show, and hence they're all on the show, by the way. His mother's in our women's division, so it brings that element to it. But Grayson Russell is one of the best pure strikers I've ever seen in collegiate and Greco-Roman wrestling, as well as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Noah Nightmare Tyndall has a box of tricks of his own. Both young men have tremendous heart and tremendous resilience. And they just recently had an Ironman match over the past weekend for the rematch. And the way we work it here is you have one rematch, but if it's, let's say that it changes hands on the second time, then there is a final match. It's usually done with 2 out of 3 or whatever else to get a clear winner, because that's what we ultimately need. There is never going to be a time where you're going to get more than three times with the same kind of a group, because you don't need more than 3. That's ultimately what happens if, let's say, a person wins the title and then they lose it back on the next show. For example, since we do 3 shows, let's say they win it on the 4th, but they lose it back to them on the 14th. The show on the 24th has to be the deciding factor, but win, lose, or draw, we're going to have a clear winner going into the following month. And that's how we do it. So because of the last match between Grayson and Noah, they just had an Ironman match for theirs. It was an amazing match of fortitude. It was a high score. I've not seen wrestlers score as many as these 2 young men did. They did a great job. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's actually a testament of who they are in real life as much as the other. And as I was talking about the Adele boys and the Menya boys, when I tell you that these 4 young men in real life are beasts on the show, it transcends. Because those two teams, this is the first time on our show. They very rarely have encountered each other on our show the whole time. The only time they usually have interacted in the past has been when we did our when we had our open MMA tournament, which we're doing in June again this year. And that's a singles thing. That's a singles tournament. That's the only time they've ever faced each other on our show. In real life, they faced each other. And on our show, this is their, not often have they faced each other. And when they do, we know it's going to be an absolute clinic of what tag team wrestling and what a true warrior, a dream master is. And Henry, Hyro, Mason, and Ty burned it down in those matches. It was an Iron Team match, and for the rematch for the BA MMA tag team titles, which is what those are called, or actually I think we called them the Extreme MMA Tag TV titles, because what we did is we originally had 4 sets of titles in 2022. We had a Rock Icon Tag Team title, we had a US Tag Team title, we had a Telenet Tag Team title, which was like a TV and Internet Tag Team Champions, which is what the Menya Boys were most of 2023. And we had a BA Tag Team Champion, which is what the Adele Boys were most of 2022. And prior to that, in retrospect, the lucky ones, Jack and Tim, they were our Rock Icon Tag Team Champions a lot of the time, but they, lost it here and there to many people. A lot of great stars, like we saw the Baticles rose during that time, and again, the lucky ones still strike back. And then, of course, we saw the formation in 2022 of Philip Ricardo Jr., who is a real-life natural bodybuilding champion, legend in the business, and his protege, the person in real life who he's training, JoJo the bodybuilder, who has been on our show since we've been doing this initiative. And that was actually kind of fun because Philip and I kind of masterminded this surprise for JoJo, where he was going to take part in the tag team tournament, even though JoJo didn't even know he was going to be in it. And Philip Ricardo Jr. was his tag team partner. And they are now the legends on our team. And they were the United States Tag Team Champions for most of 2023 once they won that. But going into 22 I meant. But going into 2023, I really decided that we really need to make these titles stand out and make these people stand out even more. So we had a match at the beginning of the year between both sets of champions to unify those titles. So when the Rock Icon champions met the United States Tag Team Champions, that would be the Lucky Ones versus the Legends. So Jack and Tim, the Lucky Ones, the musicians from England, taking on Philip Ricardo Jr. and JoJo the Bodybuilder, who are the United States Tag Team Champions, to face off to unify those titles to become the Dream Masters Universal Tag Team Champions. And then opposite, we had the Menu Boys, who were the Telenet Tag Team Champions, and we had the Adele Boys, who were the BA Tag Team Champions. We unified those to become the Extreme Television Tag Team Championship, because that's kind of what that whole group is. So now that they're all in the same division, you're probably going to see a lot more interaction between all of those people. And that's going to be an absolute clinic whenever that happens. I'll tell you, the Open MMA tournament we're going to have in June is going to be amazing. And it's going to be done the same way as I'm doing these things. As we're going to have real-life athletes modeled after these people. Going to be having these cards modeled after real-life athletes. And the winner will become the Icon of MMA 2023. Last year's winner is Ty the Devil Odell. It came down to Jairo the Pitbull Mena and Ty the Devil Odell in the end. And we had some of the most amazing fighters on the planet taking part in that tournament, including all of their brothers. Henry took part in that. Everyone else took part in that. And we had all kinds of other people. We still have all kinds of other people. That was before Grayson Russell was part of the roster and a lot of these other newcomers. This will be their first year competing in that tournament. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, if you're someone who has not been part of it before, you want to take part of it, one, you have to let me know so I can build you in time for June so I can add you to the roster for that tournament that is open. By the way, that was also my way of shouting people out, by the way, because these matches, these people are absolute beasts in real life as much as they are on the show as well. And then as far as, how I go about looking for other, people and how I go, it's kind of done the same way. I keep my eyes open. I look for people who make a difference. And I look for people who, maybe more people need to have that. I'm going to be honest with you, as a person who is a family guy, or in real life, I started the show with my son. I am kind of a person who really, embraces a lot of the people. When people do things with their kids and stuff like that, I like to feature a lot of those on our show, because I think it's important to show that you can have as much fun with your family, your kids, or whatever else as anybody else. That's where, like, the Battacles are a new tag team for the most part. Bad Dad, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Badical Dadical from TikTok, as well as his son, Badical Ladical Connor. They're fairly new to our show, and they started in December, and they've already made an instant impact. And by the way, I know Derek's birthday's coming up, so if the Badical Dadical himself is hearing this, happy birthday, Derek, and may all your dreams come true. Which I'm going to do that birthday stuff after this, because we have a few other birthdays to mention too. But, they just joined our roster recently. Another person who just joined our roster recently, I guess I can do another birthday shout out while I'm talking about it. this past weekend was the birthday of our our Universal champion, which was Speedy Easton McDonald. Easton is a young man who has competed in wrestling, in baseball, and football, and become a champion in all of those in real life, making him a super athlete. And I reached out to them, and they're actually new to the roster in 2023. And I'm very excited to see. And already, Easton has already become the Universal Champion already. That's a quick rise. And again, everything's done randomly, and again, everything is earned. Nothing is just given. A lot of the times in between shows, I'll have tournaments to see who should get a title shot. Because I don't know who should. Sometimes I don't even know who should get a title shot. I'll take the top 8, who I believe should be there, and then whoever wins out of that will get the title shot. After they get it, I'll take the next 8 and so forth. Easton came into that, and Easton won the tournament. Easton was involved in the match, and Easton became the Universal Champion. Derek won at during our Epic Random Melee Palooza back in January. That was his first time there, Batical. That was a 30-person melee, as we call it, where the winner would become the new Dream Masters Universal Champion, as we kind of combined every middle title to that. We have 2 male titles now. We have the Universal Championship, the Dream Masters Universal Championship, I should say, and the Dream Masters BA MMA Grand Prix Championship. 2 divisions, and Batical won that match, and then lost it 1-on-1 to Easton McDonald. Actually, lost it in the Cage of Doom, I think, in the beginning of February. There was a title defense over the weekend, and Batical became the champion again. But you know what? Easton does have a rematch. I'm not going to say that he doesn't have a good chance of getting it back. But also, the young man has tremendous talent and tremendous drive in real life, as much as on the show. And when he brings that, I'm sure it's going to be a barn burner again. So get ready for round 3 on that. Same thing goes for the Adells. The Adell boys and the Menu boys are they finally did have that final match. When I talk about, it was an Iron Team match during that tag team match for the BA the Extreme Tag Team titles, TV Tag Team titles. And it went to sudden death the first time, which basically meant it was a draw come to 3. And by the way, the draw was 4 things. So the way they could get the points is by knockout or submission only. That's the only 2 ways to get points. Actually, no, pinfall or submission only. And again, these 4 young men are trained, in jiu-jitsu, but also the Adell boys also have Greco-Roman wrestling under them. The Menu boys also have Muay Thai and some other things there. So very evenly matched, which is why it went to the draw. It was 4 apiece, and because it was a draw, no clear winner, we had to do it again. So I hit rematch, and they went again a draw. Guess what? Same score, 3 or 4 apiece, same time. And those were at 15 minutes, those Ironman matches. So whichever team in the 15-minute draw match time period would become the champions. That didn't work because they kept on splitting it, because these are, like I said, these 2 are the most amazing young men in real life and on our show. And then, so that was the second time. So we hit it again. So then I'm like, okay, we need a clear winner here. So we had to have a third time. That's 3. This is second sudden death. This one would have to be done 2 out of 3 falls in the same match, because this had to end. In the end, the Menu boys rose to the occasion, and the Menu boys walked away with the titles finally. But you know what? The Adells are going to work their ways back up again, and I look forward to seeing what's going to happen next. And that was an absolute clinic, and that's why it was the main event. And it was a long match, but it was a very exciting match too. A happy birthday, by the way, to Easton, who, again, Easton was our Universal Champion. Happy birthday to him. Unfortunately, he really does fall into the category of a wrestler because in pro wrestling, there's an unwritten rule. Whenever it's your birthday or if you're in your hometown, usually it's the opposite of what you would expect to happen. Usually it's the worst luck ever. Usually lose on your birthday, or if you're in your hometown, it's usually the most embarrassing thing ever. So, Easton, you definitely are one of the boys now. You're one of the regular wrestlers now, because that's an ongoing, everyday thing with wrestlers of all time. So, Easton fell into that category over the weekend in a one-on-one with the Batical. But, by the way, Easton does get a rematch, and now it will be, next time they meet each other, will be 2 out of 3 falls. So, keep that in mind as well. We'll also keep in mind, we do have what's called a case of fate, which... There's 2 cases of fate. There's one for the MMA, the BA MMA Grand Prix title, and there's also one for the Dream Masters Universal Championship. And that can get cashed in at any point, and because we have no control over any of our matches or anything else, same thing goes for this as well. So I've got to keep that in mind as well for that, everyone. So, that being said... but there is going to be a final match on the 24th between Easton and Batical. Datical one more time, 2 out of 3 falls. Good luck, Batical. And again, I think that's Derek's actual birthday, and I just realized that. So the 24th is actually Derek's birthday, I think. And if that's the case, then Derek may fall into the same category. Who knows? We'll see. But anyway, regardless, and all joking aside, happy birthday to Easton and Derek both, and respectively. Also, I already wished Lucas Royalty, one of our newest superstars, a happy birthday also, but a happy birthday to him. It's great to see him back on the roster. And tremendous young man who does a lot of work and a lot of great charity work. So go check out Lucas Royalty, all the amazing things he's doing. Very talented young man, model, actor, and also just a visionary, a true F4L, and embraces the F4L lifestyle. Love, caring, compassion, understanding, respect for everyone's differences. Same thing goes for Riley Simmons, who just had a very successful over the weekend, had some big things go on for him. Riley Simmons is over in the UK, and he's doing some amazing things over there. So quick congratulations to Riley. He's also one of my fellow anti-bullying buddies, so to speak, as someone who takes a clear stand against bullying. Lucas is someone also who does that, and I think pretty much everyone on our roster, for the most part, are against a lot of that. So very proud to stand with people like Riley and Lucas and anyone else who stands against bullying. It's never okay. It's never going to be okay, and until it's eliminated, I will not be silent until it is. And I will always defend those who need to be defended. I will be the voice of the voiceless when it needs to be done. So, that being said. All right. Boy, cruising right through here now, aren't we? This is exciting. All right, so I mentioned the Menu Boys. I mentioned the Adele Boys, who, by the way, in real life, again, go check out their social media. They're incredible athletes in real life. Grayson the Super Doc Russell, Noah the Tyndall, Noah the Nightmare Tyndall, also in real life, is a champion, and also went with Grayson Russell into a limit, and we're looking forward to round 3 of those two. I'll tell you, I had a feeling going in that Noah and Grayson were going to be a fantastic match because they're both young men, are tremendous athletes, and they're on opposite spectrums. So Noah is right across the pond from Grayson Russell, and I honestly believe that in real life they'd be a force to be reckoned with, really. So that'll be interesting. I also think Lucas Royalty and Riley Simmons would be a force to reckon with in the tag team division, but we'll have to wait on that later in the season. But anyway, in addition to that, I did shout out Datical. Happy birthday to him again. I do want to shout out Richard M. Bourne, the author of the Bizarre Events at Hellman Elementary School. He's got a new book coming out. I want to guys, is willing to go check that new book coming out. Go on to Bizarre Events. You'll find Richard Bourne on social media or all over the place. Go to their, links and stuff like that. Go check out his new book, the newest addition to the Bizarre Events at Hellman Elementary School. He's a tremendous young, author for young people. It's a tremendous book series that has a lot of potential. It has a lot of great stuff within it. It's very popular, and I think it could be the next Goosebumps or the next, really great series. And who knows what's going to happen there. But big congratulations to Richard Bourne on his latest book release, and go check that out when it comes out. Of course, our friend Jaden Brooks is also coming back in 2023 on our roster. He has had a few matches since, and he's going to be returning. Of course, Walker Campbell, he's going to be back too. And of course, I used him as a reference. So, Walker, thanks for letting me use you as a example. But in all honesty, Walker just released his new song "Chill," which is getting a lot of press. He's again a talented young man. And I got some ideas there too. I'm wondering what we could do about having Walker Campbell have entrance music. Interesting. Speaking of birthdays and music, one of our newest tag teams to our division is Connor and Aiden Sharp of the Sharp Family Singers. They're the Sharp Family Twins, for those people who are aware. For those people who don't know who the Sharp Family Twins are or the Sharp Family Singers are, they're a family who love to sing together on TikTok and YouTube or whatever. And as someone who likes to emphasize how awesome it is to do things with your family, and I embrace people who do those things, it was only going to be a matter of time till they ended up on a roster. And of course, Connor and Aiden have been on a roster already. Actually, they just recently had a title shot against the champions, the Lucky Ones. That was epic. But a happy birthday to them. Today's their birthday. They're twins, so happy birthday to them. A lot of people don't know. My mother was a twin, and she's also returning in the roster this year as well, even though she's been gone for a few years. Again, heroes are remembered, but legends never die. But so my mother's still haunting the women's division, so to speak. But Connor and Aiden, who are very much alive and well and doing great, very talented young men. Their birthdays today, so happy birthday to them as well. Everyone's having birthdays. Good for them. And also, again, Lucas already had a birthday. Shouted him out already. But when it comes to singing, I also wanted to point someone out here real quick. There's a young man on YouTube and social media. His name is Gus. What a tremendous voice this young man has. He is absolute. He's got range, and he is versatile when it comes to the range. I've seen him so far do pop. I've seen him do some very much a bluesy, some folks. Gus is a tremendous singer and a very talented young man himself. The other day he asked for suggestions. That's the worst thing to say to someone who loves music. This young man can sing everything from Adele to Ed Sheeran to pretty much anything in between. He's done Michael Jackson, of course. Of course, he's done Justin Bieber, but, we'll forgive him for that. He's a talented young man who doesn't need any kind of gimmicks to help him get over because he has the natural talent to do it. Does not need auto-tune like some other people. So shout out to Gus, and I hope that one day we can have Gus come on here. Excuse me, hold on. That's better. Drinking tea and water at the same time is a great idea. Sometimes I should do that while I'm doing this. It's good times. All right, folks, back. But Gus would be great to have, and also where we're going to be able to do video portions of this and have it go all over the place. He might be one of those people we could have that with. It goes for a lot of these people, though, also. So, Gus, should he be listening, we're looking for you, and you're always welcome here. As everyone is always welcome here at the F4L Headquarters podcast to spread the word and introduce yourself to the world. As much as I can talk how awesome you are, it's better for you to show them how awesome you are. And I'm going to give you the platform to do it. So there you go. Yep, Bannacle, porn. Jaden Brooks. Again, Jaden Brooks might be one of the smartest young men on the planet. Very intelligent young man. You could have some really good conversation with him about a variety of topics. Doesn't watch a lot of television because he's too busy succeeding and planning and running businesses. Yes, that's what I said, because that's what he's doing. He's a tremendous individual, and highly respect him for all of that. Before I want to get going here, I want to also let you guys... Oh, I'm not going to go just yet. A couple of more things here. Monster Mania is coming up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey in a couple weeks. And guess what? Yours truly will be there in person. So should you guys want to come down to Cherry Hill, New Jersey to the Doubletree Hotel for Monster Mania 52, yours truly will be there live and in person. Well, along with all my other friends and my brothers and sisters at the F4L at the Monster Mania. And of course, by the way, the tag team of the Hagen Boys will also be there in real life, not the cartoon versions of them, but them themselves. So one of the things I like to do is I like to, when it gets time Monster Mania, I like to let you guys know what's going on with it. So that being said, let me give you guys your 411 on Monster Mania 53 coming up. It is the weekend of March 10th through the 12th, 2023. It's going to take place at the Doubletree by Hilton in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Get ready for this guest list, folks. This is going to be epic. Ready? Charlie Hunnam of the Sons of Anarchy will be making his very first new Monster Mania appearance. That's right. Jax Teller is going to be in attendance. Hopefully he's not mad at me for a couple of years ago when it was on our show and Daryl Dixon and Freddy Krueger whole thing back in the day. Anyway, Charlie Hunnam's going to be there in action, at Monster Mania, as well as The Undertaker. Yes, the wrestler, The Undertaker, the Hall of Famer, is going to be there for the first time on Friday only. Also, Rose McGowan is going to be there from things of like Scream and, of course, Charmed and things of that nature. She's been around the block a few times. Everyone knows who Rose McGowan is, especially in the horror community. And if you thought that wasn't something, if you thought that it wasn't going to get creepy enough, it is Monster Mania again, folks. What horror convention, modern, wouldn't be the same without Amy Donald making her first appearance? It's actually her first convention altogether. Amy is mostly known for her new role as Megan in the new Megan movie. That's right, folks. Megan's coming to Cherry Hill. Get ready. But if you're not creeped out yet, get ready, because joining her will be another member of our roster. David Howard Thornton, Art the Clown himself, is going to be there, as well as Emily McLean, who is the little pale girl, Emily, who is also on our roster, by the way. Interested to hear what they think of their matches they had. And by the way, David Leone is going to be there, the filmmaker of the Terrifier series, and as well as the team that took it to them back in December, Lauren Lavera and Elliot Fulliam. I didn't know this turned into a Monster Mania featuring a bunch of our superstars. Awesome. Anyway, all of these people are on our roster as well, but they're going to be there in action as well. Also, Elliot has some music he just released as well, so you want to go check out some more music on Spotify. Elliot has some great tunes over there. Go check him out. He's pretty cool. Very throwback to a lot of. If you have the feeling of almost like the Ramones, really good throwbacks. Also joining us at Monster Mania will be Clint Howard, the younger brother of Ronnie Howard, of course, and he'll have a photo op as well in the Ice Cream Man gimmick. Fun times. The legendary Adrienne Barbeau will be coming to Cherry Hill, New Jersey It'll be a lot of fun. She's a legend in the horror community, Adrienne Barbeau, as well as Brooke Smith from Silence of the Lambs and multiple other things. And of course, they're going to have the Sons of Anarchy reunion because let's face it, Jax Teller Charlie Hunnam's not going to go anywhere without the rest of the rest of Sam Claw. So Emilio Rivera will be there, who played Marcus, and of course, who better than having Laura Liberia, also from Mayans and Sons of whatnot, and also Julian Carlos Juice Ortiz from the show, also known as Theo Rossi, will be coming for that part of that as well. Also making her first Monster Mania appearance, joining Rose McGowan for the charm type of thing, will be Holly Marie Combs. I know my wife's excited for that one. As well as Rebecca Gay Hart will be also there from the various other roles. If you guys want to sing, there is a never-ending story to this. But anyway, for those people who like Stranger Things, I know you guys are probably sad that it is going to end. But what's not going to end, and maybe you can sing around with her, but Gabriel Pizzolo is going to be at Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So you guys can sing the never-ending story together maybe. That'll be a lot of fun. Eduardo Francis from Stranger Things also will be making an appearance, his first Monster Mania appearance, of course. And not even done last but not least, of course, Sam himself, Quinn Lord, who, by the way, I can't wait to hear what he thinks about the fact that he had to face Grayson Russell back in October when I sold him he would. That terrified him, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say when I ask him what he thought of his match with Grayson Russell when he challenged him. Spoiler alert, Grayson is still the champion, so there you go. Anyway, in addition to Quinn Lord, who's a very nice young man, by the way, also, is going to be the original Final Girls of all the Friday the 13th. You're going to have Adrienne King, the original survivor of Friday the 13th, Amy Steele, Kimberly Beck, and Diana Kimmel, who's going to be there as well from the Friday series. And of course, what show wouldn't be the same without Scott Jackson and the guys from Living Corpse Comics there. They're going to be there. Ken and Buzz and Blair. Hey, they're awesome dudes. Go check them out whenever you're there. Don't just, they're cool guys. Go say hi to them. They like people. Unfortunately, Jack Haley will not be able to attend. Of course, he was the Freddie, or I know him from the Bad News Bears, but he unfortunately has to postpone due to whatever reason. So that's going to be, again, in March 10th through the 12th of March. So only a couple weeks away, folks. Make sure you get all your tickets and information at monstermania.net and whatnot. You can find all that information also on their website, and like I just said, monstermania.net, or on their Facebook page at Monster Mania Con. And there you go. So, again, shout out to Dave Hagen for always putting on a great show for people, always giving people those rare opportunities to meet their heroes and whatnot, and doing everything else that he does. And Dave Hagen is another person I'm waiting to get on here, but even better, I got something more cool also us and this people. Not tonight, folks, but later this week, this Friday, right here on this podcast, I am very happy to say that we're going to be having a Monster Mania family early reunion. As I am going to be joining, and I'm going to be opening up the F4L headquarters, I have several of my awesome Monster Mania fellow family members and staff coming on the podcast together collectively to kind of say hello to each other, get acquainted again, and also, if you ever wondered, how, anything you should know about conventions, and they're going to tell you kind of how they got started in it, what they like about it, and also give you kind of the tips on how you yourself can enjoy a show better, maybe a little better organizing, or maybe give you tips on how to do things in ways you didn't think of yet. Or maybe you've never been to a convention at all, so we're going to kind of collectively give you guys tips on what it's like to go to a convention and what it's like to go through Monster Mania in itself, and what sets Monster Mania aside from all these other conventions out there. Well, they're going to be joining me on Friday this week for that very thing, so stick around for that, and I'm going to be reaching out to each of those people in between now and then for that, as it's a different format. And that's going to be exciting, and I look forward to that. That's later this week. Tomorrow will be Throwback Thursday. I will be having another new episode for you guys tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, so be ready for that as well. So, I like I said, this show is going to take off huge, and I look forward to doing all of these things with you and for you all. So, that being said, I have been on here for a little bit. I did want to come here. I did everything I needed to do. I did the shout-outs. I told you, brought you guys behind the scenes a little bit. And I let you know as we go on Monstermania. And I did my film reviews. I have accomplished all that I had. And folks, may all your dreams come true from the F4L headquarters. I am the icon, Sean Jazz Stevens. I will see you guys soon. If you want to be a guest on the F4L headquarters podcast, you can find me at WOW Dream Matches, DREAMMATCHES @gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at F4L Icon, SEANJAZZSTEVENS 1 on Instagram. I no longer am on TikTok. I hate to disappoint you, but I am on Instagram, and I'm on YouTube, of course, under Icons of the F4L. So make sure you find me on there as well. You can see all of our exciting matches there as well. Folks, you have always been awesome, and I'm looking forward to bringing even more to you guys in the coming years to come. So, may all your dreams come true from the F4L headquarters. Sean Jazz Stevens saying, peace, everyone.